Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. I'd like to focus this talk on this teaching of breath awareness as it is given to us in the Satipaṭṭhāna Sutta. First of all, to say historically, this sutta is maybe a kind of mixture of different teachings that have all been put together, and we now have this Satipaṭṭhāna Sutta. I would be fairly confident that all the teachings in Satipaṭṭhāna Sutta are relevant for us, helpful for us, and we can use them as guidance for liberation. And what's beautiful about this sutta is that it is a meditation sutta, isn't it? And there are not so many suttas in the Pali Canon that focus purely on meditation practice. And so this is really a very valuable resource for us. The Buddha taught Anapanasati, breath awareness meditation, in so many different places at so many different times. This is a really basic or common or most useful way to develop our meditation practice. Actually, there are teachers historically, such as Ledi Sayadaw in Burma, great Arahant monk, many others who only teach this method. We could quite usefully, skillfully practice Anapanasati for their whole life, and we wouldn't be wasting our time. There's a whole sutta in Majjhima Nikaya which is dedicated to this practice, Ānāpānasati Sutta, number 118. But anyway, I'm talking about Sutta number 10 this evening in Majjhima, which also, Satipaṭṭhāna Sutta also comes in the Digha Nikaya in an even longer version. Digha number 22. This emphasizes really the importance of this teaching. Coming to this first section, I'm going to focus in on the meditation instructions that the Buddha gives us, how to observe the breath. He says, notice, is the breath short or is the breath long? Or we can say, is the breath shallow or is the breath deep? I don't take this as a single instruction myself. I notice that paying attention to the breath, there is so much to notice. But this invitation, is it long or is it short? Is really an invitation to pay attention, isn't it, to the process, to the rhythm, to really notice the nuances, to notice the different phases of the breath. To make much of this ability to focus on this simple object of meditation. The Buddha goes on to say, feel the whole body breathing. Can you feel it? Can you feel the whole body? And this is variously translated. Did the Buddha mean feel the whole body of the breath, the whole process of breathing? Or did he mean feel the whole body breathing, this entire form with every breath? And I think this is a really interesting and quite helpful, significant teaching. Oftentimes, in the teachings of the Buddha, there is wiggle space. There's room for different interpretations rather than being a reason to dispute or a problem for us. It's an opportunity for us to look at things from different angles and to explore. What does this mean for me? How do I experience this? What does this teaching do here for this mind, this body? This invitation to observe the whole body of the breath is something we can consider in different ways, usefully. For some people, there is a quite natural inclination, tendency of the mind towards samadhi, towards focus, towards really zeroing in, narrowing down the field of attention, coming to one point. So, for instance, when we're, say, paying attention to the body, the inclination will be to go to some particular part of the body and rest the attention there and refine and bore away like the carpenter with the saw, just working away at that point of contact. So a mind that quite naturally inclines towards samadhi. And another person, many of us, have a different kind of experience. So that when we're paying attention to the breath, we don't necessarily narrow down the field of awareness. It can even open up increasingly as we pay attention, so that we can actually feel the whole body breathing. We can feel the breath, not just in the nostrils, not just in the chest or the belly, but we can feel it in every part of the body. The experience of vitality, energy, the life force that comes in with the in-breath and permeates the entire body. The feeling of letting go, relaxing, releasing, deflating can be felt as the breath leaves the body in every part of the body. And so rather than disputing about this instruction from the Buddha to feel the whole body breathing or the whole body of the breath, we can actually try it out and see what works for you. How does the mind incline when we have the opportunity to observe the breath? What does it do? And the important point really is that we can't go wrong. There's nothing amiss if we find ourselves opening to the whole body, experiencing the breath in every part of the body, or really focusing on just one aspect of this body, or even just one aspect of the breath. Whatever we do, however we develop our mindfulness using the breath as the object of meditation, it's going to be good. It's going to be valuable. We can consider that the important work is being done, the work of stopping, the work of putting aside, as it says in the Satipaṭṭhāna Sutta, putting aside all covetousness and grief for the world. The willingness to do that is the practice. It is our meditation. And so to stop and to renounce the world is what we've already done. And then, as we'll learn in the Satipaṭṭhāna Sutta, there are so many different ways we can direct our attention we can practice meditation. We can contemplate the body, feelings, mind, and dhammas, thinking, phenomena. So coming back to these instructions regarding Anapanasati, breath awareness, the Buddha then says, the fourth and final instruction in the first little section of this sutta, the first meditation practice, he says, first of all, getting into the breath. Is it long? Is it short? Is it deep? Is it shallow? We're coming into the awareness of the breath. Really starting to pay attention and then starting to refine the attention, either focusing in on the body of the breath or opening up to the experience of the whole body breathing. And then he says, can we observe the breath, tranquilizing the bodily formation? And isn't this just what happens when we sit down and we start to meditate? Isn't it so often the case that we're, sometimes even for a whole session, but certainly often initially, just aware of all the agitation, we could say all the covetousness and grief for the world, the bubbling mind, the tension in the body, the wish to be doing something else, the momentum of unfinished business that we carry so much of the time. So we first sit down and it can be quite challenging. This is why it's good to sit together, isn't it? Because we have much more chance of managing to stay still when we have a collective effort going on. We're not likely to get up and go and do something else. And this is so helpful because oftentimes we sit on our own in a more perhaps slightly casual way. Mara can really get in there and bring up some urgent business that just has to be done. And we can find ourselves jumping up. End of meditation session. Isn't it true that when we're most busy, this is the time that we most benefit from stopping and making space for practice? So, coming back to this instruction, tranquilizing the bodily formation as we give ourselves the gift of meditation time, we can notice, even when the mind is all over the place and there's a lot of worry, anxiety, stress, tension, etc. in the system, there's a calming, there's a peacefulness that starts to almost imperceptibly often, but nevertheless starts to manifest for us. And the Buddha's inviting us to notice this, tranquilizing this peacefulness, this calm. It is inevitable. It is bound to happen. How wonderful is that? Because we've stopped, because we're making space, we can allow things to slow down. And paying attention to the breath, focusing in this way, it's the most peaceful, sublime practice. You may not agree with me, it doesn't always feel like that, but it certainly takes us towards real peace because we're letting go of everything other than this simple awareness. And the breath is such a wonderful object for us because it reflects the mind. So as we sit and we observe the breath, and there's a little bit of peacefulness, there's a little bit of slowing down, a little bit of relaxation, what happens to the breath? It becomes more peaceful, more calm, more subtle, more refined. And what happens to the mind? We follow that. We follow that slowing, refining, softening process. And so the mind reflects the body reflects the mind, and there's a peacefulness that starts to steal onto the scene. We can notice that. The Buddha is inviting us to not just notice that, but make that our object of meditation. So first we pay attention to the breath itself, long or short, harsh or soft, deep or shallow, etc. We start to really get into the breath, the body of the breath. Notice all the subtleties, the nuances, the pauses, the natural breath. This incredible, beautiful process becomes very beautiful for us, because anything that we actually pay attention to brightens for us, doesn't it? And it becomes more interesting, because this mind is extremely bright. It's illuminating. It's like turning on the light. When we pay attention, it's like we're shining the flashlight on whatever it is that we pay attention to. It doesn't really matter what it is. It brightens. It becomes more interesting. And so does the mind. And so we can start to really appreciate the beauty of the breath. It becomes a nimitta for us. Sharper, brighter, clearer, breath by breath. And then the Buddha says, start to notice the mind. Start to notice the peacefulness. Let that be the object of meditation. Tranquilizing the bodily formation, tranquilizing of the breath, tranquilizing of the body, tranquilizing of the mind. This experience of deep relaxation. Noticing that. Now there's a refrain that follows on from this beautiful set of instructions for us to practice Anapanasati, breath awareness. And this refrain that follows on is a repeating theme throughout the Satipaṭṭhāna Sutta. The opportunity deepens because the Buddha says you can observe the breath in different ways. Given these instructions, given this practice that we're doing, we can observe the breath inside and the breath outside. A whole extra dimension for us. How do we interpret that teaching? It's very clear in the Pali. It's the external breath and the internal breath. But it's not so clear where is the external part. So is it an opportunity here to observe the breath on the outside of the body? Maybe touching the entrance of the nostrils. Or is it an opportunity to consider that all beings breathe? It's almost the definition of a being, is that it breathes. Not just animals, but also plants in a different way, but they too breathe. Are we being invited to consider, to contemplate our shared experience? Our dear friends who've passed away have ceased to breathe. The last thing we'll experience, if we're lucky, if we're fortunate in this life, will be the last breath. This is what defines, isn't it, the living and the dead, the breath. And so I think this is a very powerful and extraordinary invitation from the Buddha to consider the breath, both internally and externally. And he goes further and says, also when we observe the breath, let's consider it's arising, it's passing, it's arising and passing. This flow, this constant change. This is Anicca Sanya, isn't it? The awareness of impermanence. He brings this in too. Can we, even as we're really getting immersed in breath meditation, paying attention to each and every breath, or the whole body breathing, can we also remember this reality that's presenting itself to us, isn't it? Every moment, that there is this constant flow and change. No two breaths the same. The breath itself, every breath is a change. It's a changing, flowing, constantly moving phenomenon. And it's a reflection of the reality that everything is changing. There is nothing in this realm, material realm, that is permanent. So again, it's a whole extra dimension that we can bring in, even as we sit and focus on the breath, just remembering, noticing, awareness of change. This is a really powerful contemplation for us. It helps us so much, so that when our time comes at the end of the life, we're ready. Because we're not expecting things to stay the same. Breath contemplation, meditating on the breath, it's almost immediately an invitation also to reflect on death, because this is the very narrow boundary here. This breath, this is it, this is the life. If I'm not breathing, that's the end of it all. It's that subtle. It's that tenuous. Quite remarkable. So the Buddha's instructions here are really inviting us to wake up to the way things are with every breath, in every moment. This is it. This could be the last breath. And we can get to really know that, to really bring that in, and to make peace with that. We have a tendency to think of death as a problem, or unfortunate, fearful, something to push away to the side somewhere and not really think about until somebody dies, and then we're presented with this painful shock. But if we're paying attention to this body and this breath, and heeding the Buddha's teachings on Anicca, impermanence, then we're not going to be traumatized or shocked. It's more like, oh yes, their time came, and my time will come too. And all those that I love, all those who are dear to me, they're also on the same path. These bodies don't last, and that's fine. That's normal. It's nature, it's Dhamma. So here in this meditation practice, we are actually opening to the reality, to the way things are. It's no small thing, and it's so simple, the meditation practice, and yet there's a kind of permeating of Dhamma that happens through the mind. Wisdom arises, understanding dawns on us, breath by breath. We are preparing ourselves. We are ready to let go of everything. The Buddha also says in this refrain, he gives a third way, a third paradigm for us to bring in to our breath awareness. He says, you may observe internally and externally. You may observe arising and passing, and/or you may simply have bare awareness and attention on the object. So all that I've said, if it starts to feel a bit complicated, then we can relax when we come to this final instruction, because the Buddha is inviting us to consider all of that, bring in these contemplations, and/or simply pay attention here. Bare awareness. So we can recognize that that's all that's needed. The practice is not the words, it's not the speaking, it's not the thinking about, it's the actual experience, isn't it? Moment by moment. Can we feel this breath? Can we allow ourselves to let go of all the covetousness and grief for the world? What does that mean? Whenever thoughts, memories, concerns, desires, aversion come up for us, can we drop them? Can we put them aside? Can we simply let go? What I mean is, can we redirect our attention? Can we come back to the simple, the immanent, the felt, the truly present breath, body breathing? That's all we have to do. And the rest, the mind, the heart, that process of peace making, of relaxation, of deepening understanding, of the arising of wisdom, all of that happens quite naturally. That's not our job. Our job is just to watch the breath, just to be present, and all the rest, the Dhamma, will reveal itself. And we know that. Any of us who meditate, all of us who meditate, we can experience the benefit of just this much. It's almost like we just have to leave it alone. Just have to get out of the way. Let the will subside. Let the control subside. All the views and opinions, thoughts and, ideas about meditation, let them all subside and just watch the breath. This last instruction, so helpful. Bare awareness, bare attention. So these are just a few words about this first part of the Satipaṭṭhāna Sutta, or rather the first meditation instruction. There's so much that could be said, but actually the practice is in the experiencing, putting the instructions into practice and allowing them to just percolate through the system, to inform, to guide us. Ewam. Sadhu, sadhu.